Chapter 1, April 33, Bethany. My name is Mary Magdalene. I was well born, descended of royal stock. My father's name was Cyrus and my mother Eucharis. Sadly, my mother died when I was 9 and my father when I was 16. And so, with my brother Lazarus and sister Martha, we owned Magdalene, along with Bethany, not far from Jerusalem, and a considerable part of Jerusalem itself. We divided the holdings amongst ourselves so that I owned Magdalene, hence my name Magdalene. Lazarus kept the property in Jerusalem, and Bethany was Martha's. So I was very rich, and sensuous pleasure often keeps company with great wealth. I was renowned for my beauty, my wealth, and the way I gave my body to pleasure. So much so I was commonly known as the sinner. Meanwhile Jesus, also known as Yeshua, was preaching here and there, and guided by divine will, I hastened to the house of Simon the leper, where I had heard he was preaching over dinner. He looked at me with his liquid sapphire blue eyes, a colour and iridescence I had never seen before, lively yet still, a deep well of mystery. He seemed from another world. His face overflowed with compassion and non-judgment, and to my embarrassment I found myself weeping. Being a sinner, I did not dare mingle with the righteous, but stayed back and washed the Lord's feet with my tears, dried them with my hair, and anointed them with precious ointment. Simon the Pharisee thought that if this man were a true prophet, he would never allow a sinful woman to touch him. But Yeshua rebuked him and told him all my sins were forgiven. He cast 7 demons out of me and set me on fire with love for him. He defended me when the Pharisee said I was unclean, when Martha said I was lazy, when Judas called me wasteful. Seeing me weep, he could not contain his own tears. For love of me, he would raise my brother who had been dead for 4 days, and freed Martha from the blood flux she had suffered from for 7 years. And then I remembered. He was the one I had learnt about when I attended the mystery school in Alexandria some 6 years earlier, when I was 20 years old. The ancients had foretold centuries ago that someone would be brought in with a very high consciousness, start as a normal human, and transform himself to an immortal state through resurrection. But he needed help. And I was told by my teachers that I would be part of the divine plan. And so from that day forth I followed him, and he showered me with so many marks of his love for me. He sought my counsel, and he defended me at all times. I had found my twin soul. I will never forget the first time we became as one, so exquisite and quite unlike anything I had experienced before. Joseph of Arimathea said it was not safe for me to remain in Jerusalem. There was no accounting for what the Romans might do to quell the unrest in Jerusalem after the darkest day when my beloved was crucified. In his dying hours, Yeshua had made Joseph promise to look after me. I was with child, and Yeshua wanted me to ensure my precious cargo would be safe. It should have been Peter as leader of the apostles, but he and the others were nowhere to be seen, fearing for their safety. Joseph had begged the authorities to release Yeshua's body to him. His love for Yeshua overcame his fear for his own safety. It was Joseph's tomb Yeshua was laid to rest in. I actually saw him outside the very same tomb on the 3rd day, happy and smiling, with no wounds, in a clean white robe. I was reluctant to leave Yeshua, but he urged me to tell the other apostles, and I sped to find them. They were hiding in Levi's family home in Jerusalem. But Andrew and Peter did not like what I had to say and disbelieved me. I was upset. Peter was always jealous of me because of my relationship with Yeshua. Levi defended me. Yeshua would have done so if he'd still been alive, but I was on my own now. I left them and made my way home to Bethany to join Lazarus and Martha. Joseph, the 2 Marys, the Virgin Mary and Mary Sloane were also there. Joseph said we would leave at first light on foot for Joppa, some 30 miles to the west on the Mediterranean coast. We would then sail 260 miles or so by boat to Alexandria on the northern coast of Egypt. Joseph was a wealthy tin merchant. He had contacts in Alexandria who would be able to secure lodgings for us in Delta, the Jewish quarter. Of course, I knew Alexandria well. Before she was married, my mother had trained as a priestess at the great Mother Isis temple school in Alexandria. And even though she died when I was young, she had already encouraged me to follow in her path. She wore a golden serpent on her left arm, spiralling up from the elbow, signifying she was an initiate of this temple school. The serpent represents the Kundalini energy at the base of the spine, which when activated through specific energetic or tantric practices, can spiral up and shift consciousness in an individual beyond the mind into cosmic awareness. This symbol of resurrection indicates the wearer has been initiated into the mysteries of Isis and serves the Great Mother's creation and its awakening from spiritual death or separation consciousness. Alexandria was an international multi-ethnic centre of learning. I had money and I could afford to go there. In contrast to Judea, women had obtained a more advanced state of emancipation, socially, politically, and legally. Women were admitted to temple schools alongside men, particularly that of the Isis temple school. Some of the initiations were challenging, but the blessings were countless. I specialised in healing and blessing work. This is where I learned about the mystery school of Akhenaten, the law of one. I was fortunate to find it, and even more blessed to be admitted after graduating from the Isis temple school. Admittance was by invitation only, and only a few from our class were granted that honour. I was sworn to secrecy, and we all took oaths. Akhenaten was an ancient pharaoh of Egypt and ruled for just 17 years, from 1351 to 1334 BC. He challenged polytheism. At that time, people worshipped many gods, and their religious beliefs were controlled by the priesthood. Akhenaten took a brave stance and told the people there was only one God, and more importantly, they could access God from inside themselves. The priests were outraged as they were effectively made redundant overnight. Egypt had one of the strongest military armies in the world at this time, but Akhenaten was a pacifist and refused to conquer other lands, so he was unpopular with the military as well. Akhenaten's consciousness was very high, and his aim was to teach immortality to his followers. During his reign, he achieved this with 300 of his students. Almost all of these were women. Inevitably, the priesthood and the military chiefs got together and conspired to give Akhenaten a poison to kill him, thus thwarting his influence over the people. However, Akhenaten was immortal, so they knew he would not actually die. They gathered 3 black Nubian sorcerers to give Akhenaten a concoction which made him look dead. As soon as the royal doctor pronounced his death, they rushed his body to a special room where they had a sarcophagus waiting. They placed his body inside, put on the lid with a magical seal, and buried it in a well-hidden place. It would be 2,000 years before a piece of the seal eroded and the spell was broken. Every effort was made to erase all evidence of his existence. A few statues are all that remain. But Akhenaten was unconcerned, as he had lived his life and knew that it would become encoded in the Akashic records for all eternity. He also knew the country would fall back to their old ways. His legacy was the 300 immortal people who would carry on his teachings. These 300 Egyptians joined the Tat Brotherhood and waited from around 1350 to 500 BC, about 800 years. Then they migrated to a place called Masada, Israel, and formed the Essene Brotherhood. These 300 became the inner circle, joined by others who became the outer circle. Mary, mother of Yeshua, was one of these 300, and Joseph was part of the outer circle. It was all part of the plan and was as it was meant to be.